Hi, we're the Boomershines, and welcome to this episode of
Loop Scoop.
So this is where we share our knowledge, tips, and tricks from having completed America's Great Loop. And today's episode is all about whether or not you should loop with your kids. And our answer is going to surprise you because we made a mistake, and so
We made a mistake.
We made a mistake. So basically it depends on the age of your kids, and the answer may be yes, and maybe, and it may be like hard, absolutely not.
Okay.
So we should probably start with some disclaimers.
Well, and we should, for people that haven't seen, describe our looping kids.
Oh yeah, so we looped with our two kids who were 8 and 10 when we did the loop, basically.
Right.
And I'm just going to go ahead and give some disclaimers because I know we might ruffle a few feathers here, but number one, this is just our opinion based on our experience, our boating before the loop and after the loop. And
opinions are like feet.
Yes.
And they all stink.
There's another analogy we won't get into. But if you did the loop with your kids, I would love it if you would put the ages that you did the loop with your kids down in the comments and what you think about our recommendations that we're about to get into, so that we can kind of be a reference and a resource for future loopers who want to take their family with them on the loop.
Yeah, because it is getting more popular doing the loop.
Yep.
It is getting to be the RVing of the water
It
in a way.
Yep. And here's the other thing, we're not talking about living on a boat. We're talking specifically about doing the loop, which is very different than just casual cruising or living on a boat.
Yeah, you're talking about like unplugging from life for a year.
Yes, but there's also the intensity of the loop. You have to stay basically on a rough schedule. You have to keep moving. And there's also over 100 locks. And the locks are kind of the deal breaker on some of this. But I have lost a lot of sleep over this because I feel responsible, and I'd rather ruffle some feathers by giving you a very honest, real thoughts and opinions than potentially put people at risk. We're gonna look at safety, which to me is paramount. School, social, sanity, and a little bit of sports. So those are kind of our parameters when looking at ages of what age your kid should be to do the loop.
Yep.
So let's start with the easy. If you have a baby, if you have a 0 to 1 year old baby, by all means do the loop. If you deliver that baby and want to hop on a boat and go while you can still contain that baby,
a
go for it.
non-mobile baby.
Yes, we boated a lot when Belle, our daughter, was a baby because we could put her in we had this awesome boat swing. She could stay in a pack and play. But once she got mobile and she could get out of the pack and play and out of the swing, or wasn't happy in the swing, we also added Rex to the mix, but we tapped out because we didn't think it was safe.
But at the time when we had Belle and she was in that mode, she was very early walking and crawling. The boat that we had, a Meridian 408,
was great.
Was really well laid out. It was like a giant playpen,
it was great. So if you have one child who's, say, under 1, do the loop. Great. But once they're mobile till about 5, this is where I'm going to ruffle feathers, I think it's a hard no to do the loop. I'll tell you why. There's really two safety boxes you need to check to do the loop. Number one is, can you leave that child unattended for 30 minutes to an hour while you do the locks? My biggest concern for people trying to do the loop with toddlers, age 1 to, I'm just going to say 5, is that when you are locking, you 100% have to be paying attention to your boat. If you leave those lines to go deal with the child, you're putting yourself and your boat at risk, but you're also putting everybody else in that lock at risk with you. And that's not cool. And it's also, we would never leave our toddlers unattended to do the lock. Everybody has their own safety preferences, but in land life, it's like, okay, if you had to take a Zoom call for 30 minutes to an hour, you could not attend your child, would you feel safe leaving them in your kitchen, in your house, with a door that leads to a pool that doesn't have a fence around it? If your answer is you don't think you should do that, then you shouldn't do the loop.
Or a cabinet that has every switch that controls the house.
Yeah, I mean, you
Which
can
is the control
safety
panel.
lock everything, but you can't watch them. And there's a few locks, like the locks on the Dismal Swamp, that are easy, but the majority of them are potential disasters at any minute.
Either a bunch of little boats or on the Mississippi or the
There's
rivers.
huge boats around you, and
Yeah,
they're tall,
a 900
and there's
foot freighter.
rushing water, and you're having to man your lines. And with our kids, even though they're older, without fail, that's when something happened. And we were talking to them, but there'd be a meltdown or a kid fight or something. I'm losing sleep at night thinking about people wanting to do the loop with toddlers because I don't think it's safe for the toddler, for the family, or for other people in the locks. Now, the disclaimer is if you had an older child, like if you had a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old, and the 10-year-old could make sure that 2-year-old was safe, fine. Or if you had a third adult with you for the entire loop, basically. Or you could get away with having a third person, Erie Canal, Trent, and all of the rivers.
Yeah.
You could do the Dismal Swamp Lock, no problem. You could do Florida all the way up to the Erie without a third adult, but it's really the Erie all the way down to Mobile
Once again,
Bay.
I go back to for the planned locks. There are things that happen that aren't planned.
So yeah, you're thinking about the unplanned. I'm thinking about the stuff that you know is going to happen. You know you have to do over 100 locks, and you're going to have to leave your child unattended while you do that. And I don't think it's safe to take your children on the loop until you can safely leave them for at least, and I say 30 minutes. How long do you think the average lock lasts?
Average lock, I mean, from the start to finish, 45 minutes.
Yeah, okay, so 30 minutes. But you need to be able to leave your child unattended and for them to be safe. So by the time they're 5, you can put them in front of a movie and you should be good. And they can come ask you a question. And the second box I think you have to check is your child a strong swimmer? Not just can they swim, but can they save themselves? I think people think, yeah, my kid can swim in the pool. If they fall in the pool, they're fine. They're not falling in a pool on the loop. They are falling into rivers and intercoastals with killer currents, and it's not clear water. So like you can't see the bottom on the vast majority.
And they're alligators.
And sharks. But I would say 90% of the loop, you can't see down 3 feet in the water.
Yeah,
I mean,
in
a lot
Georgia,
of it,
South Carolina, North Carolina, and parts of Florida, the current is so strong, even if an adult fell in, you would have a problem.
There was a dock in Savannah that I was freaking out every time. I'm like, if Rex tripped and fell in. But you were saying, we had a moment when we watched Rex jump off a second-story dock without a life jacket, and he did it over and over again. I'm like, okay, he's old enough now.
Yeah, we looked at each other and we were like, we can do the loop.
Yeah, because he was a strong enough swimmer. And that's our kid who's grown up on a lake and spends all summer on a lake and has been in swimming lessons from 0 on. So I think you just need to figure out when you think your child is a strong enough swimmer where they have a fighting chance if they fall into murky water and water with current. Yep. Now, if Rex had fallen in the water, if I had fallen in the water in Savannah, it would have been tricky.
Yeah.
But
it's not a matter of getting back to the boat, it's a matter of getting to the shore and just getting to be safe.
Yeah, so that's why I say from age 1 to 5, or whenever your child's a strong swimmer, or whenever you can leave them alone, both of those things, I think it's a hard no. I just don't think it's responsible, and that's where I'm going to ruffle feathers. But I'm on the record stating that.
There you go.
So if you disagree, put it in the comments below, but only if you've actually done the loop. If you haven't
no couch loopers.
No couch loopers, and no people living on boats, because there are a ton of people living on boats with small children, but they're not looping. And there's some great YouTube channels out there with small children on boats, but they also have a third adult.
Yeah, don't look at some of the bigger ones and the beautiful people on sailboats that are in Fiji and all over. But there's a bunch of people that you don't see. They have
third adults, and there's like we ran into a YouTube family with kids our age, and they don't show the third adult, but there's a third adult. So just know that looping is different, and the locks are what I'm worried about, and the fact that you're in some really ripping water.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the little age. Now you get to like 5 to age 10, which is the ages that our kids are in. And that's, I'm gonna say, a maybe. That's where we made our mistake. I wish our kids were older.
I think that depends upon your kid.
Yes. But, okay, so the toddlers are out for safety. When you get into the age 5 to 10, you're dealing with school, social, and sanity issues. So I felt like our kids were safe. Mm-hmm. They were strong swimmers. We trained for safety.
And our rule was, if you're outside of the interior of the boat, your life jacket is on no matter
running. What. If the engine is running and you step outside, they had to wear their life jacket. So we were very strict on safety. But where it gets tricky and why I'm going to say that age group is a maybe is schooling is a lot harder. There were 4 other boats with kids when we did the loop. They were all older, and their schooling was so much easier because those kids were computer friendly and could just go online and do it. They could read, but they still needed a person on hand to help them with all their schooling. They just couldn't hop on the computer and go. Like, I watch our rising 6th and 7th graders do their work, and they are completely independent. They do it all on their own. I don't have to do diddly squat. But when they were in 3rd and 4th grade, it was very labor intensive, which took it was a lot of work for us.
Yeah.
Especially me, and it was very stressful. And we enrolled them in an online school. Like, that part was taken care of, but they still needed a parent to assist. So I think the older your kids are, the easier the schooling is from a parental perspective.
Yep.
So that's the school thing. The other big thing that I think was really hard on our kids is the social aspect. So first of all, there's not very many kids on the loop, so they're lonely. But when they're 8 and 10, they are not, our kids at least, and our kids' friends are not really on iPads and phones and computers, and they're not talking with their friends via electronics. 6th and 7th grade, they're on their computer and their electronics a ton talking to their friends, but in 3rd and 4th they weren't, and it made them lonely. And their friends weren't on the computers. You know, we had a handful of friends whose parents let their children be on the computers just to talk to our kids, which I'm forever grateful for, but it's not the norm. So your kids are very isolated when they're that little doing the loop, and there's no other kids that were that little.
And our kids get along pretty well, but they don't just sit there and entertain each other. You may have 2 kids, if you have more than 1 kid, that they just sit there and entertain each other, and they don't need outside.
Our kids missed
but ours
social interaction.
Yeah. Our daughter is very social. So.
And Rex was social too, but he was in 3rd grade, so there weren't other people who were like, you can go play on your computer, because you shouldn't, like, ideally, kids shouldn't be on their electronics that much. So socially, it's really hard when they're younger. Older, it's a lot easier because they can do everything electronically. So school was harder, social was harder, sanity.
Is that our sanity or their sanity?
This is our sanity. There's thunder rumbling.
Thunderstorm.
Our sanity. So our kids were, when we started the loop, we'd never left them alone without a babysitter or without us. By the time we ended the loop, we're down the dock on somebody else's boat having docktails, and it was great. And they got confident, and we got confident. Now, like, we just went to Italy, and we would leave and go go to a hotel down the way, and no problem. I think when they're little, you have to have them all the time with you, and you're with them 24/7. So for your sanity, just the ability to go get dinner as adults would have been really nice.
Yep.
And we had some amazing looper friends who took our kids to a movie one night and about cried because I could go to the grocery store by myself. It was.
We love you, Sojourn.
Yes. Anyway, so the sanity bit, and then the last one is sports for this age group. If you're super sporty, you're missing a year of developmental sports, and that was really hard on Rex.
If they're going at the age we went.
Yes. And when we left, Rex was playing coach pitch baseball, and when we came back, it was kid pitch, and it was intense, and that was
a huge leap for him.
Yeah, and we made it through a season, but he tapped out of baseball. So I think that's an opportunity cost that you just need to be aware of. Now, everything is an opportunity cost, but.
And hey, look, you may be more motivated. You may find a baseball field every marina and go pitch with your kid or something. That's personal, but it is more difficult.
Yeah, and that, he went from flag football to pads, and he missed a whole year.
He still crushed it, though.
Number 22, Rex Boomershines.
But anyway.
That was an easier transition. But that's the other thing you got to take into consideration. I think from age 10 on are your golden years. The beauty, in my opinion, of doing the loop with your children is so that you can incorporate all of the history in the Eastern Seaboard and the river system into their education. If they're too little, they completely miss that, so just whatever.
They still barely remember things that we did. We're doing these videos, and they watch them after we're done, and they're like, oh, I don't even remember that. And so we thought they were old enough.
Yeah, so that's where if we were to do it again, we'd wait till they were older, over 10. Like Rex is 11 now. He'd be so incredibly helpful now because he's bigger and burlier, and he was helpful then, but he was just a peanut. So, and he'd remember more, he would comprehend more. He'd be able to incorporate more of what we were, where the places we were and the history they were learning, and integrate that all together.
Are you going to get into too old?
I
Like
can't,
teenagers, I think.
we can't speak to that, so make
No,
comments.
but from what I hear, there's a certain age where teenagers don't want to be with you, or we have a teenager now who spends a lot of time in the room. So I think there is a sweet spot, and I think we were at the beginning of the sweet spot.
Yeah.
We could have waited a little bit longer, but life happens and you just got to jump. So could we have waited a year and would it have been better? Yes. Did we? No. So
Well, and that goes to say, I am a huge proponent that any time you can take a break from the rat race and focus on your
Just
family
family time.
and spend 24/7 creating great humans and togetherness and memories is amazing. So if your only time to do this, do it is in one window that's not an ideal time frame.
just don't do it when they're toddlers.
Or
Or
have
have
an extra
someone-
person.
Yeah.
Or if you want to be on a boat with toddlers, go to the Caribbean where there is a community and
Yeah.
you're not doing locks. And I
Go to
you
the
know,
chat and chill in the Bahamas.
and everybody's hanging out and you're having play dates and the kids aren't lonely and you're not lonely and you're not putting everybody at risk doing locks. In hindsight, if I were to do it again with our kids at their age, I would go to the Caribbean. If I were to do it with the kids this age, I'd do the loop.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do the loop again with our kids that age. I would wait. But we had that window and we wanted to do it and we didn't know any better or any different and no one had done a video like this. So those are my pearls of wisdom.
We also had a moment where we were done with the loop. We had to get the boat from the south to the north for insurance. And the two of us ran the boat for 4 days.
Oh, it's a whole different experience.
And it was, I guess, what most loopers experience. And the level of stress, just the two of us, was so much lower than doing it with the kids. Now, it was amazing doing it with the kids, but you're trying to operate a boat. Hey, Dad. Hey, Mom. My computer's not, you know, just, he touched me, he's not doing that. So it just,
and we don't show that in our videos. And there were lots of meltdowns and tantrums and.
but we got a taste
Diggering.
of what 98% of the loopers, we got, cheers, ding. This is lovely.
It was relaxing.
Oh, look at this, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So.
My mom nervous system, I'm sure you can tell in these videos, was very alert because you're responsible for these extra humans. And it's a very different boating experience than when we boated before kids or when we
my
boated without
captaining
them.
experience, when everything, when that anchor that we set
Sweaty.
holds everything dear, and then I always got upset when the air conditioning wouldn't work.
Oh, you
because
get all frazzled.
that was one of the most frazzling things because I wanted my family to be comfortable. If it were just her, I wouldn't be as upset.
Yeah.
But
No, the loop is a fantastic thing. I think it's an incredible experience for everyone to do. I just think you got to pick the right ages to do it. And there's ways to, as I always say, where there's a will, there's a way. And if your only time to do it is when they're little, but you've just really got to take safety into account and realize that the loop is different than any other cruising we've ever done.
well, and it's not RVing. It's not at all RVing. If you get a flat, you pull over to the side of the road, and you're fairly safe. You know, boating is different, and it can be very dangerous, and you just got to realize that. RVing can be dangerous, of course, but it's not quite that.
Yeah, because
Just-
we've done both.
Yeah, just
So-
think it through. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, well, and I really hope that anyone who has done the loop will put in their thoughts and comments below because we might be missing something. And again, this is our opinion. It is general. It is, but put in the comments of what age your kids were, or if you did it when you were a kid, and what you think the ideal age would be. And that would be really helpful. But there were four boats with kids when we did it. Crab Shack had junior high girls, and they seemed.
We were the youngest.
Yeah, Rex was by far the youngest. The junior high family.
There was a Canadian boat, and they had a boy who was 2 years older than
Belle.
Belle.
They seemed to have it easier. They only had one. The junior high age seemed pretty good. On Fire had high school.
Yep.
But they were already homeschooling, and that might make a big difference. Who am I missing? Was it 4 total?
We met a couple
Well, and then
randomly
there-
in the Bahamas. But
There was a family boat that started the loop and quit because it's really hard. So that was, I guess, the fifth. And we won't mention that name, but there were 4 families that completed the loop the year we did. Rex was the youngest. I think the oldest was a sophomore or junior. And these 3 boats had a much easier time with the schooling and the social and the sanity bit. We were insane. And yeah, again, should have waited till they were older.
But wouldn't have changed it.
That's
We
right.
did what we did.
Okay, so if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. Please add your thoughts.
If we
and-
ruffled your feathers, take a break, and all your feathers will settle
I'm
back
sorry.
down.
I'm sorry. I'd rather ruffle feathers than have
She's
someone
gonna
not be
sleep better
safe.
at night, knowing
I
that she
literally
didn't put
stay up at night
anybody
worrying
at
about
risk.
this. And the other thing is, we're going to do a separate video with our kids and let them give you their opinions. But YouTube turns off comments, so we can't include them in this if they do it. So we'll do a separate one with that. But comments go here. Thoughts
All
go
right.
here. Hope that helps.
Shine on.